This is a timeline of universal history. The date system used in this timeline is the Universal Standard Calendar. There are several differences between the original timeline set by Frank Herbert's DUNE and the timelines set by the DUNE Encyclopedia and the prequels respectively, both of which actually conflicted with some of Frank's dates. BG 1300s, BG 19th century AD. The Luddites destroy machines. 11,200 BG 1960 AD. The beginning of space travel. C. 11,000 Bulgarian Lev. Following the second interspace migrations, the Jews hide their identity from the non-Jews. C. Pet Hiledi Gudini. Sand trout are brought to water-rich Arrakis by the wandering Muad'Ru and begin desertification. Sand trout, sandworm melange cycle begins. C. 2500 Gudini. The old empire is formed from the populated planets at the end of the last Terran migrations. 2200 Gudini sled Christa. Arneklo, Quina, Vidad, and others become long-lived cyborg cogators. Some follow Vidad to Hesra to contemplate the universe in isolation. Others become hermit philosophers on inhabited worlds. C. 1580 Gudina sled Christa. The second Islamic movement begins under the second Muhammad. C. 1500 Gudini sled Christa. All of the Muad'Ru vanish at independent sites all over the galaxy. The Tlulaxa merchants of the League are spawned by Zen-Sunni ecumenism. C. 1480 Gudini sled Christa. The third Islamic movement begins under the Prophet Mahomet, the third Muhammad. C. 1450 Gudini sled Christa. Scientists arrive on Arrakis to assess it for future colonization, and botanical testing stations are established on the planet. C. 1400 Gudini sled Christa. During the rule of Emperor Shakad the Wise, the imperial chemist Yanshu Pashkoko discovers the geriatric spice melange on Arrakis. Later, Shakad himself takes credit for this. 1381 Gudina sled Christa. The Buddhislamics break away from the teachings of Mahomet and the third movement. C. 1350 Gudini sled Christa. Schism in the Buddhislamic religion. Zen-Sunnis and Zen-Shiites break from each other. Later, Zen-Sufi and Zen-Shia denominations also form. C. 1330 Gudini sled Christa. Zen-Sunnis and Zen-Shiites leave the non-Buddhislamics and migrate outside the borders of the old empire. The Zen-Sunni wanderers roavel from one world to another in search of freedom from persecution and enslavement by the imperial raiders. Time of Titans 1287 to 1182 BG. Одна хиляда 287 Gudini. Tlaloc fails to bring the old empire out of her slumber. 20 people, the 20 Titans, set out to conquer the empire with him. The programming expert Barbarossa reprograms computers, giving them human aggression and hunger for power. With his aid, the old empire falls 11 in the revolt of the Titans across the old empire, which begins the time of Titans. Xerxes kills his father. Some systems on the edge of the empire resist and found the League of Nobles centered on Seleucia Secundus and led by a series of viceroys, beginning with Bovco Manresa. Cogator Quina retreats to Seleucia's city of introspection. scientists abandon Arrakis. Одна хиляда двеста осемдесет години Tlaloc dies. Agamemnon and other titans have themselves transformed to Simex. Say, Одна хиляда двеста тридесет и пет години Rodel 9 is renamed X. Одна хиляда сто деветдесет и две години след Христа. The first Rethgar rebellion begins on Walgus. Xerxes trusts keeping the order on his planets completely to the local computer network. 1183 BG Ajax, Lord of Walgus, crushes the Rethgar rebellions and exterminates the populace. Outraged by the massacre, his mate Hecate transfers her brain into a deep space vessel and disappears. Rule of Omnius, 1182 to 201 BC. 1182 BG Xerxes' AI network seizes control over Ix. Naming itself Omnius, it establishes the synchronized worlds, which usurp the Titan-controlled worlds. The Titans are made his servants. Omnius launches his first attacks against the League, beginning a war of attrition which will continue for centuries. The Buddhislamics, who believe the rise of thinking machines to power is Kralizek, the typhoon struggle at the end of the universe of prophecies, flee mainly to the unallied planets. Later, Buddhislamic slaves are introduced on some League planets. Одна хиляда осемдесет и две години след Христа, Barbarossa creates Beowulf. 8th century BG. Tibana, a leading Socratic Christian of 4th Enbus, writes, The hearts of all men dwell in the same wilderness. 603 BG. Omnius launches an unsuccessful attack against Chusak. 443 години. Human slaves and contractor robots complete Omnius's Colosseum. 400 лет před naším letopočtem. The sorceresses emerge among the women of Rosak and begin to keep detailed breeding records, starting the future Kwisatz Haderach program. 383 година. The Zensuni wanderers land on Arrakis. 377 години. Discovery of a Muad'Ru runestone on an empty planet. 361 години. Birth of Abdel. 303 Bogarski Leva. The last massive assault of the machines on the League for the next 100 years. Agamemnon executes his 12th son. 277 години след Христа. Gina's soldiers find Kirox in a shipwreck. They reprogram it and begin using it for combat practices. 250 Biroji. Birth of Manian Butler. 240 Simrik нашої ери. Birth of Livia Butler. 238 години. Birth of Piers Harkonnen. 234 години. Possible birth of Iblis Ginjo. 228 години след Христа. Birth of Aurelius Venport. 226 години. Birth of Heoma. 225 BG. Hecate secretly returns to human space and begins to watch the war between Omnius and the League of Nobles. 224 години. Marriage of Manian Butler and Livia. Birth of Camiboro, descendant of the last emperor of the Old Empire. 223 години. Birth of Vorian Atreides and Xavier Harkonnen. 222 години. Birth of Serena Butler. 220 години след Христа. Birth of Octa and Fredo Butler. 218 години. Birth of Norma Kenva and Selim Wormrider. 217 години. Ulf and Katerina Harkonnen are attacked by Agamemnon. While en route to Salusa Secundus, Piers crashes on Caladan, presumed dead thenceforth, and dies later in the year. Dvesta I Chitrinadesed Gudini, birth of Mamad. Dvesta I Edinadesed Gudini, birth of Virgil Tantor, Ishmael, and Kalam Vaz. Dvesta I Deset Gudini, death of Conqui Kenva, supreme sorceress of Rosak. Her daughter, Zufa Kenva, takes the title of Supreme Sorceress. Selim is lost in the desert for 2 days. Dvesta I Shest Gudini, death of Fredo Butler. Dvesta I Pet Gudini. Xavier receives the legal entitlement to the original Harkonnen holdings. Serena Butler leads a relief team to the unallied planet of Caladan, where thousands of refugees from the synchronized worlds have fled, and provides relief for a biological blight that almost destroys the pristine farms on Poratrin. Dvesta I Chetiri Gudini, Xavier Harkonnen becomes a Salusan militia officer, 43. Serena Butler delivers 3 transports of medical supplies to closed-off Tlulax suffering from mysterious diseases. Dvesta I Tri Gudini. Theo Holtzman invents the Scrambler Web, which fails to protect the attack of the thinking machines against Salusa Secundus, the first battle of Zimia, in which Primero Vanabal Meech perishes. Xavier Harkonnen is promoted to the rank of Segundo for his actions in the battle. Selim is exiled from his village by Naib Dartha, but he discovers how to ride the sandworms of Arrakis. Erasmus is transferred from Corrin to Earth. Omnius conquers Giedi Prime and then dispatches thousands of deep space probes into the galaxy to establish machine bases. Holtzman invites Norma Kenva to work with him on Poratrin, and she invents the Suspensors. Tlulaxa slavers capture Ishmael on Harmonthep and sell him on Poratrin. Serena, Ort Wibson, Bridget Patterson, and Pinker Jib secretly assemble a strike force to liberate Giedi Prime. Serena is captured and becomes a slave of Erasmus, while the League Armada learns of this and helps to liberate Giedi. Heoma dies while killing Barbarossa. Vorian Atreides is given life extension treatment by his father, General Agamemnon. Dvesta I Dve Gudini Slet Christa. Xavier Harkonnen and Octa Butler get married. On Arrakis, Tuk Kedire realizes that the spice may be of value. Theo Holtzman invents the protecting shield. Birth of Manion the Innocent. Vorian and Surad have their 7th mission on Wolgus and encounter an asteroid field that damages the Dream Voyager. Foundation of Venki Enterprises by Tuk Kedire and Aurelius Venport. Selim begins assembling a group of outlaws. Dvesta Iedno Gudina. Birth of Roella Harkonnen. Erasmus kills the baby Manion. Revolt breaks out on Earth where Ajax is killed. The first slave revolt of Poratrin is suppressed and Belmule executed. Vorian Atreides, Serena Butler, and Iblis Ginjo flee to Salusa Secundus. Juno kills Eklo, and the Titans exterminate all human populace of Earth. Birth of Laronica Tergiet. Butlerian Jihad. 201 to 108 before God. 200 BG. The League of Nobles starts the Butlerian Jihad against the thinking machines. Using atomics, the League wipes out the thinking machines of Earth in the Battle of Earth. This nuclear attack renders Earth uninhabitable for centuries. 199 BC. Birth of Amelia Harkonnen. 198 BC. Bela Tegus is the first synchronized world. The newly assembled army of the Jihad attacks. The skirmish is inconclusive and Jihad retreats. 197 BC. Coronomnius sends a heavy fleet to Salusa Secundus, but the army of the Jihad rebuffs them in the ensuing Second Battle of Zimia. Vorian Atreides returns to Bela Tegus and discovers that the thinking machines have rebuilt it. Jafar joins the exiled Selim. Later, many follow his example, making Selim's outlaw band grow. 196 BC. Vorian Atreides is promoted to Segundo, first grade. Birth of Jewel Noret on Ginas. Tio Holtzman introduces the flicker and fire technique for his shields. 195 BC. The army of the Jihad attempts to free the population from the synchronized world Honru, but Omnius uses suicide robot ships that wipe out the whole Jihad fleet. Over 500,000 free humans are killed in the Honru massacre. Aliad is separated from his family. 194 BC. Virgil joins the military. 193 BC. The Jipol Jihad Police is officially established, led by Yorek Thur. In a political marriage, Iblis Ginjo marries Kami Boro. 192 BC. Gina's mercenaries offer their services to the Jihad as independent warriors. 50. Birth of Tambir Boro Ginjo, son of Iblis Ginjo and Kami Boro. 191 BC. 7 League representatives, political rivals or people enemies of Iblis Ginjo, are implicated as machine spies and interrogated by Jipol. Grand Patriarch Ginjo creates the Seraphim to protect Serena Butler. Ishmael and Azza get married. 190 BC. Manion Butler retires as Viceroy. Serena Butler is voted in as interim Viceroy. Virgil Tantor marries Sheil. Birth of Aquis Boro Ginjo. Birth of Shamal, daughter of Ishmael and Azza. 189 BC. Thinking machines conquer Elrum after the Battle of Elrum, an unsuccessful assassination attempt on Serena Butler. 188 BC. The thinking machines attack Peridot Colony. In the ensuing Battle of Peridot Colony, the army of the Jihad drives back the machines who follow a scorched earth policy, and the colony is ultimately destroyed. Virgil meets Kirox, the fateful, enthusiastic attack on Corin. Birth of Felina, second daughter of Ishmael and Azza. 187 BC. Grand Patriarch Iblis Ginjo proposes the Jihad Council to run the war and administer both domestic, Jipol, and foreign Army of the Jihad affairs. The memorial of the Jihadi martyrs begin on Zimia and Giedi City. 185 BC. Xavier Harkonnen and Vorian Atreides are both promoted to the rank of Primero. Norma Kenva moves from Holtzman's mansion to her secluded private laboratory and begins to work on Holtzman's original field equations to find a way to fold space. Birth of Gilbertus Albans. 184 BC. 3 unallied planets are conquered by machine forces to be used as bases of operations for their expansion. The machines adapt to human trickery and the captive Earth Omnius becomes outdated. 183 BC. Death of Lucille Tantor. Birth of Relin Boro Ginjo. 181 BG. 2 more unallied planets, Tyndall and Belos, fall to machine domination. 180 BG. Death of Mamad. Zon Noret fights on board a besieged machine ship where he is injured. 179 BC. Vorian Atreides proposes that the army of the Jihad must defend the unallied planets as well as League worlds. He explains how Omnius is moving, the pattern by which he is taking strategic star systems on the fringe of the League. The proposal passes. 178 BC. Liberation of Tyndall by a Jihad counterstrike. Jewel Norrit installs learning algorithms in Kirox, enabling it to develop its own skills when practicing. 177 BC, Battle of Fourth Anbus, an unallied planet. Another unsuccessful assassination attempt on Serena Butler. Marha joins Selim's group. Xerxes moves to suppress the rebellion of Ix. Norma Senva invents the theory of space folding. Death of Virgil Tantor. Death of Zon Norrit. 176 BG. Venport visits Poritrin and releases Norma from the contract that her inventions belong to Holtzman. He uses the profits gained by Venki to assist her in beginning building a space-folding ship. Erasmus starts to teach high-level machine logic to Gilbertus Albans to prove to Omnius that human intellect can be developed. The assault on Poritrin, which is repelled. The Cogitator, Quina, reveals to Serena the true intents of Ginjo and seizes his existence. Kieder sends Rekur Van to Arrakis. Venport proposes to Senva and leaves for Arrakis to settle the outlaws. Ishmael tried to speak with Nico Blood. As a consequence, he is separated from his family and goes with Eliad to work for Senva. 175 BG. Vorian Atreides places an Omnius update reprogrammed with false data on the derelict update ship near Earth and restarts the ship. Starting from Bela Tegeus, incarnations of Omnius on several synchronized worlds suffer major breakdown, victims of his trick. Ginjo and Yorek Thur, leaving from Poritrin, meet Hecate. The army of the Jihad succeeds in the liberation of Ix from machine domination with Hecate's help. Selim marries Marha, birth of the daughter of Omilia Harkonnen. 174 BG. Shamal marries Raphael. The League installs a station on Caladan, and Vorian falls in love with Leronica Tergied. Birth of Wandra Harkonnen, daughter of Xavier and Octa. The Ivory Tower Cogators visit Salusa Secundus, and Keats is sent as a secondary. Shamal and Raphael meet Ishmael. Corin Omnius is corrupted, and Erasmus destroys the corrupted Omnius update. Venport builds the prototype space-folding ship on Poritrin. Nico Blood and Tio Holtzman cast Norma out from the planet, and she is captured by Xerxes. The Great Slave Uprising is ignited on Poritrin by Eliad, who dies while killing Tio Holtzman. Lord Nico Blood also dies, as well as much of the population of Starda, which is destroyed, and all of Poritrin. To escape the slaughter, Ishmael and his Zensuni followers capture Kieder and flee to Arrakis with the untried space-folding ship, the first successful space-folding trip. Death of Darta and Selim. The uprising triggers a pogrom of the slaves. Venport arrives at Salusa and starts to look for Norma. An immense telekinetic power awakens in Norma Senva, who destroys Xerxes. The Titans destroy a slave encampment on Ularda. Jewel Norrit allows Kirox to train Gina's mercenaries in combat. The city of Bandalong is built on Tlulax. Birth of Quentin Vigar. 173 BG. Slavers devastate Chusak and let believe it was done by the machines. Birth of Elhim, son of Selim and Marha. Agamemnon, Dante, Juno, and several Neo-Simex revolt against Omnius and conquer Bela Tegeus. Jafar's outlaws take in the Poritrins and Sunni refugees. Leronica marries Kalam Vaz. Birth of Vorians and Leronica's twin sons, Estes and Kagan. Norma and Aurelius establish a shipyard on Kolhar to produce space-folding ships. Birth of Tisha Senva, daughter of Zufa and Iblis. The Titans set up a Neo-Kemek army from the populace of Bela Tegeus and start a war against Omnius. 172 BG. Birth of Adrian Venport, son of Norma and Aurelius. 166 BG. Death of Manion and Livia Butler. The humans of the Riso planetoid are abducted in the Battle of Riso. Gilbertus Albans is given life extension treatment by Erasmus. 165 BG. Serena asks Venport to contribute his technology to the jihad. Vorian and Xavier go to Kolhar. Death of Kalam Vaz. 164 BG. Aurelius Venport gives the space-folding technology and the Kolhar shipyards to the jihad's disposal. Aurelius and outstanding Dr. Rajid Suk are given the Manian Cross by Serena. Cogitor Vidad and his colleagues broker peace between Omnius and the League. The war-weary humans want peace in spite of Serena Butler's and Iblis Ginjo's protest. Serena Butler travels to Corin seemingly to negotiate peace, but in truth to die a martyr's death. She provokes Omnius until she is executed. Serena's martyrdom gives a new flame to the jihad. Zufa Senva is abducted by Hecate. Thinking she is an enemy, she destroys her in a telekinetic blast. Zufa and Aurelius Venport die along with Hecate. Ticha Senva becomes supreme sorceress of Rosak. Hecate's asteroid falls on Ginas. Death of Jewel Noret. Xavier Harkonnen discovers that Iblis Ginjo and the Tlulaxa have been kidnapping humans in large numbers for years from some planets and using their organs as replacement for jihadis. Xavier sends notice to Vorian Atreides, then kills Iblis and himself. After the death of Jewel Noret, the Ginaz mercenaries begin training the first true Ginaz swordmasters and set up the Yul Noret Swordmaster School in his name. The Titans conquer Richeza. Tlulax is invaded by mobs after their activities are revealed to the League. The Tlulaxa are forced to flee their homeworld. Ishmael and Marha get married. The whole truth concerning the Tlulaxa organ scandal is never revealed. Thus, history will remember Iblis Ginjo as hero and Harkonnen as traitor. To escape the tainted Harkonnen name, Wandra Butler takes the name Butler. Kami Boro becomes Grand Patriarch. After fleeing Tlulax, Riker Van flees to the synchronized worlds and offers Erasmus a sample of modified DNA of Serena Butler. They attempt to create a clone, but Erasmus is heavily disappointed. However, he finds Riker interesting and enjoys his company. Erasmus subsequently removes his arms and legs and leaves the core of his body in a life support socket with a system of nutrient and waste tubes. His limbs are experimentally transplanted into human test subjects, 4 arms and 4 legs, with manipulations of a patiently administered system of rewards and punishments. The stump, as he called him, Van becomes an experimental subject. Ishmael declares the combined Zenshini group of Arrakis, of Jafar's outlaws, and the former Poritran slaves, the free men of Arrakis. 154 BG. Kami Boro leaves the post of Grand Patriarch to Tambir Boro. 153 BG. Yorick Thur, who aspired to become Grand Patriarch, fakes his own death and escapes to the synchronized worlds. Stoped descend I 2 godini sled Christa. Birth of Xander Boro Ginjo, son of Relin Boro. 150 BG. Liberation of Parmentier. Quentin Vigar marries Wandra Butler, and out of respect for the Butler family, takes the name Butler. Circa 148 dopo Cristo. Birth of Mohandas Suk, the nephew of Rajid Suk. 145 BG. Birth of Faken Butler, son of Quentin and Wandra Butler. 138 BG. Birth of Rikoff Butler, son of Quentin and Wandra Butler. 137 BG. Birth of Raquela Berto Anirul, granddaughter of Vorian Atreides and Carida Julan. 133 BG, birth of Jimbe Wit. 132 Bulgarian Leva, birth of Jessica Boroginjo, daughter of Xander Boroginjo. 129 BG Swordmaster Boris is enslaved by Omnius during a battle at Ularda. 128 bin Galom, birth of Hyla and Andros, children of Agamemnon. 126 BG, birth of Abelard Butler, son of Quentin and Wandra Butler. 68. Wandra suffers a stroke on his birth. 123 Bulgarian Lev. The thinking machines unsuccessfully try to reconquer Ix in the Battle of Ix. 120 BG Rykov Butler marries Kohei Tantor. 119 BG birth of Reyna Butler, daughter of Rykov and Kohei. 118 BG birth of Horace Roker on Corin. 115 BG death of Helmina Berto Anirul, daughter of Vorian Atreides and Carida Julan. Use on BG death of Kami Boro, Xander Boro Ginjo becomes Grand Patriarch. 108 Bulgarian Leva. Vorian Atreides reveals to Abelard Butler the true role of Xavier Harkonnen in the Tllulaxa organ scandal, liberation of Honru. Omnius infects the League planets with the Omnius Scourge, causing the death of billions. Istian Goss graduates as Swordmaster. The Titans escape to Hesra from Omnius's renewing attacks and kill the Cogators and Keats. Death of Rykov Butler and Kohei Tantor. Reyna Butler starts a fanatic movement named the Cult of Serena, which begins to destroy both electronic and mechanical machines. Raquela Berto Anirul discovers that melange may offer protection against the Scourge. As a result, spice prospectors begin to swarm to Arrakis. Venki puts more spice on the market. The Zensuni, trading with Venki, led by Elhim, move closer to Arrakis City, their lifestyle becoming softer. The Rosak sorceresses, led by Ticha Kenva, begin to collect genetic samples of the virus-endangered humanity's bloodlines. Abelard Butler makes Harkonnen his family name. The Corin Omnius gathers all robot spaceships to launch a devastating attack against the League of Nobles, absorbed with fighting the Demon Scourge. Death of Laronica Tergiet. The League sends the Great Purge Fleet against the unprotected synchronized worlds and burns all but Corin with nuclear fire. Death of Boris. Learning about the Great Purge, the Corin Omnius recalls the robot fleet to protect Corin. The army of the Jihad draws an impenetrable blockade around Corin, trapping the remaining thinking machines. The Butlerian Jihad is declared officially over. The Demon Scourge slowly burns itself out. Agamemnon's children, Hyla and Andros, are imprisoned in a preservation vault. Road to the Battle of Corin, 108 to 88 BG. 107 Bulgarian Leva. Raquela Berto Anirul and Mohandas Suk flee to an outlying Jewish village on Parmentier, which they try to help through the Scourge, but is burnt down. They make a secret agreement with the surviving Jews. They are then recruited by Vorian Atreides to help form the Humanities Medical Commission, or HUMED, to replace the Jihad Medical Commission. 106 Bulgarian Leva. Vorian proposes a hit against Hesra, but is dismissed. 103 BG Quentin Butler retires from the Army of Humanity. Birth of Jimak Tero. Nur Bikagram. Fiken Butler marries Jessica Boro Ginjo. 98. B.G. Fiken Butler establishes the Post-Jihad Council. Birth of Jules Butler. 93. B.G. Fiken Butler becomes Viceroy of the League. Istian Goss becomes a swordmaster tutor on Ginaz. Battle of Corin. 88. B.G. Slavers begin to harass the Iraqis' Zinsuni settlements. Quentin Butler is captured by the Titans and transformed into a Kimek. Norma Kenva discovers the use of melange for space folders. She becomes the first navigator. The Rosek epidemic breaks. Rakela Berto Anirul and Mohandas Suk travel to there. Supported by the cult of Serena, Fiken Butler declares himself viceroy and installs a law that prohibits the production of thinking machines. Yorek Thur flees Corin for Salusa Secundus and kills Xander Boro Ginjo. The cult of Serena starts to destroy machines on Salusa Secundus, and Cogitor Vidad is killed. Abulurd Harkonnen kills Yorek Thur. Ticha Kenva poisons Rakela Berto Anirul, but she changes her internal body chemistry and transforms into the First Reverend Mother. Tisha Senva commits suicide. Vorian Atreides and Quentin Butler kill the last three Titans, Agamemnon, Juno, and Dante, and Quentin Butler is killed as the Neo-Kimeks begin to shut down. Kyrox kills Nar Trig, now a loyal member of the cult of Serena, in combat, then shuts himself down to prevent Istian Goss from being killed by cultists. The League launches the Battle of Corin. Omnius draws the bridge of Hrethgir around Corin to stop the human fleet, but Vorian Atreides launches the attack. Abulurd Harkonnen tries to sabotage him to save the slaves. The Corin Omnius broadcasts a copy of itself into space before humanity destroys the last incarnations of Omnius and the thinking machines. Gilbertus Albans saves the brain of Erasmus from the Holocaust, escaping Corin in disguise as a human slave and going to Lecter as a farmer. Slave pen master Horace Roker also escapes, changing his name and beginning a new life in exile. Adrian Venport founds Fold Space Shipping Company. The space folders are navigated by prescience enabled by melange, based on Norma's breakthrough. To commemorate the Battle of Corin, Fiken Butler and his son Jules take the name Corino, and joining the titles of Grand Patriarch and Viceroy, Fiken declares himself the Emperor of Humanity, founding the Corino Empire. The Golden Lion Throne is set up for Fiken. The League of Nobles is disbanded and replaced by the Landsrod League of Great Houses, headed by the Imperial House Corino. At Vorian Atreides' suggestion, Abulurd Harkonnen is declared a coward and exiled. Abulurd settles on Lankaville and passes his hatred of Vorian Atreides to the next Harkonnen generation, which will eventually give birth to enmity between House Atreides and House Harkonnen. Rakela Berto Anirul becomes leader of the surviving sorceresses and founds the Sisterhood of Rosak to preserve mankind's genetic heritage. The secret agreement with the Jews passes to the Sisterhood and will remain for 15,000 years. Ishmael and a group of freemen harassed by slavers move to the deep desert of Arrakis. The freemen, adapting to the harsh lifestyle, will during the next centuries become the Freeman people Elhim and his followers slowly merge with the townfolk of the North Pole of Arrakis. 78. With the lead of the cult of Serena, machine destruction hits the inhabited worlds in renewed waves, wiping out most of the machine-based technology and also the majority of historical documents. Culture based on the production of highly developed machines survives only on Ix and Rachis. Dr. Mohandas Suk founds a medical school like the League has never seen, the Suk Medical School, after witnessing the Omnius Scourge and Rosak epidemic. Corino Empire, 88 before God, 10,193 after God, 87 BG, deactivation of the last Neo-Simex, 79, death of Wandra Butler, 58, 85 Bulgarian Leva, Abulurd Harkonnen marries, birth of Dirdos Harkonnen and his two brothers, 80, 81 BG, Gilbertus Albans leaves Lecter with Erasmus, c. 78 BG, death of Vicon Corino. Jules Corino becomes emperor and amends the Venport Agreement to allow competition to Venport Holdings. 81. 75 BG, Vorian Atreides marries Mariella on Kepler. 68 Bodo, death of Abulurd Harkonnen and his wife from a fever in their fishing village. Dirdos Harkonnen founds House Harkonnen on Lankyvale. Under the encouragement of Erasmus, Gilbertus Albans reclaims his original name and founds the Order of Mentats on Lampadas. 52 BG, birth of Salvador Corino. 82. 51 BG, birth of Clar Atreides, son of Vorian Atreides, on Kepler. Peddeset Buggery, birth of Roderick Corino. 82. 45 BG, Orijoma is dismissed from the Sisterhood of Rosak in disgrace. 83. Birth of a pureblood sorceress on Rosak. 84. 35. BG, birth of Esther Kano. 84. 32 billion gallons. The CET begin compiling the Orange Catholic Bible. Yirmi Sekis BG, birth of Griffin Harkonnen. 85. Yirmi Alta BG, birth of Anna Corino and Valya Harkonnen. Yirmi Besh BG, birth of Willem Atreides on Caladan. The Commission of Ecumenical Translators compiles the Orange Catholic Bible on Old Earth, meant to quell all religious divisions. 86. Toure Bomoko and the delegates are granted sanctuary by Jules Corino. 87. 22 BG 88. Manfred Toronto is deprived of both legs in the bomb blast that kills Reyna Butler, who dies in his arms. He begins leading the cult of Serena, renaming it the Butlerian Movement. He leads Swordmaster Anari Idaho and millions of people across the Imperium to cleanse humanity of its reliance on convenient technologies, often exploiting religious paranoia to advance his agendas. 89. Toure Bomoko rapes the Empress Orena Corino. All 35 of the delegates are violently executed, but Toure somehow manages to escape and hide on Tupil, where he eventually dies with the help of Joseph Venport. 20 BG, Manfred Toronto visits the Thalim system. The Butlerians declare the Tlulaxa biological projects to be against the laws of man and God, and they are destroyed. Strict rules are imposed upon all Tlulaxa scientists. 17 BG, death of Jules Corino. 90. From a brain tumor, Salvador Corino becomes Padishah Emperor. Patupikagram. Valya Harkonnen is recruited to the Sisterhood of Rosak. 191 by Sister Arlet. 192. Galactic Civil War. 5 BG 93. The Butler family, under the name Corino, has consolidated a tenuous hold on the human-occupied universe. The head of the Corino family, Emperor Salvador, lives in splendor on the planet Salusa Secundus with his brother and trusted advisor, Roderick. Riots still rage over the Orange Catholic Bible of the Commission of Seminole Translators. Constantly, innocents are executed by mobs mistaken for the hated Toure Bomoko. In opposition to the popular movement is the unscrupulous businessman Joseph Venport, who holds a near monopoly on space travel, advised by his wife Chioba and great-grandmother Norma Kenva, who discovered the secret to creating space-folding navigators. Joseph plots against his few remaining competitors and funds a secret group of scientific researchers who hold personal grudges against the Butlerians and are willing to salvage and optimize old Simic technology to satisfy their vendettas with Tyrando. On the planet Kepler, war hero Vorian Atreides attempts to keep his neighbors free from the threat of slavers. An attempt to obtain imperial protection for his planet is successful, but Vorian is sent even deeper into exile by Salvador and Roderick, who are concerned that the jihad hero may, through his celebrity, incite a rebellion against their authority. He chooses to go to Arrakis, where the free men of DUNE, who have abandoned the easier life of the Arakeen villages, continue to thrive in the desert, encountering various enemies and allies during the course of their existence. On the planet Lankavale, the Harkonnen family ekes out a lean existence far from the glory enjoyed by their ancestors, after Vorian Atreides disowned the disgraced Abulurd Harkonnen, while the parents have decided to surrender ambition for survival and a humble existence. The two oldest children, Griffin and Valia, seek to rebuild their family fortunes through service to the Landsraad and the Sisterhood on Rosak, respectively. Vorian's granddaughter, Raquela Berto Anirul, who survived a poisoning that provided her with the memories and mental presences of her female ancestors, leads the Sisterhood of Rosak. She thwarts Butlerian sympathizers within her own ranks, who correctly suspect that Raquela and her inner circle are using computers to manage their breeding index, which comprises an immense amount of family data from across the Imperium. Raquela is aided in these efforts by Sister Valia Harkonnen, who finds her efforts to rebuild her family's glory impeded when the spoiled princess Anna Corino, sister to Emperor Salvador and Roderick, is sent to Rosak. Anna, viewed as an embarrassment by the royal family, is meant to learn important skills with the sisters, but instead follows her own childish ambitions. Sister Dorothea steals 2 pills of the Rosak drug that gave Raquela her abilities and encourages Valia to take it alongside her. While Dorothea became the second ever Reverend Mother after taking and surviving it, Valia merely pretends to take it, but keeps the pill. Reverend Mother Dorothea learns of the Sisterhood's secret computers, and that Raquela is her grandmother. More follow her, including Anna Corino, who fails to become a Reverend Mother and enters a trance state. Through the new director of the Suk Medical School and former Rosak sister, Dr. Ori Joma, the Sisterhood also plots against Salvador, who it fears may be the ancestor of a potentially disastrous tyrant. The Mentat Gilbertus Albans attempts to maintain order in his Mentat school on the planet Lampedas and hide the existence of his old mentor, the robot Erasmus 4BG. Gilbertus Albans is dragged into the Butlerian movement's anti-technology campaign by the fanaticism of his most vocal students and the furor of Taurando, who coerces Gilbertus to serve as his special advisor. Gilbertus finds himself forced into a confrontation with his best student and friend, Drygo, who is in the service of Josef Venport's Venhold shipping conglomerate. Hyla and Andros decide to find Vorian and potentially convert them back to the side of the thinking machines. They go to Kepler, where they have learned he is living, and they burn his house and kill his wife after she tells them he has gone to Arrakis. Griffin Harkonnen also goes to Arrakis to find Vorian, who is banished from a sietch of free men after they are attacked, and some of them are killed by Hyla and Andros, which the Naib sees to be Vorian's fault. Before Vorian's banishment, Abelard is found by the free men and brought to him. It is decided they will both be exiled to the desert. Griffin escapes and is saved from a sandworm by Vorian. The Naib tells Griffin and Vorian they must fight to end their blood feud. During the fight, Griffin reveals to Vorian that his wife is dead, catching him off guard and ultimately getting him at his mercy, although he decides not to kill him out of honoring ending the feud. The two are placed in the desert hut. Griffin is killed by Hyla. Vorian attracts a worm, which kills both Hyla and Andros. The Emperor Salvador is told about the Sisterhood's computers by Sister Doretia when she brings Anna back to Salusa Secundus. He goes to Rosak to investigate this, but Rakela and Valia destroy the computer in advance, and the Emperor finds nothing. When the sorceresses attack Salvador, he is furious and declares the Sisterhood of Rosak disbanded by imperial decree. Valia travels back to Lankaville and finally takes the drug, becoming the third ever Reverend Mother. Shortly after, her and 27 other sisters, led by Mother Superior Rakela, are given sanctuary by Joseph Venport on Wallach Nye, where they hope to rebuild the Sisterhood. The CET releases a sanitized OCB with the cautious approval of the Emperor Salvador, but this does not stop the murders. Ultimately, Roderick Carino uses them to the Imperium's advantage, killing Dr. Joma and pretending she has been killed as Toure Bomoko, and that the DNA shows that this is the real Bomoko, born ending the riots and killings and getting rid of Joma. Dorothea founds the Orthodox Sisterhood sanctioned by Emperor Roderick on Salusa Secundus. Horace Roker is found and burnt to death by Butlerians. 3. BG industrialist Josef Venport squares off against Taurando. Gilbertus Albans refuses to force his mentats to swear an oath to the Butlerians. He is executed after the siege of the mentat school, but Anna Carino escapes with Erasmus. A riot incited by Taurando results in the death of Roderick's daughter. Venport uses the constant danger of giant sandworms to orchestrate the Emperor's assassination. Rakela summons Dorothea and the Orthodox sisters to the school and names her and Vela co-leaders before she dies to heal the rift. However, Vela uses her newly discovered power of voice to force Dorothea to commit suicide, declaring herself to be the sole Mother Superior of the reunited order and ingratiating herself to the Emperor Roderick. Vorian Atreides travels to Caladan to meet his descendants. Soon tragedy begins to befall the Atreides, and Vorian realizes too late that Griffin and Valia's younger sister, Tula, have visited Harkonnen vengeance on them. 1 BG/AG equals approximately 13,000 AD. The Battle of Lampedusa ends with a House Corino victory, resulting in the death of leader Manford Turando, although the weakened movement continues under Anari, Idaho. The Battle of Denali ends with a House Corino victory and the end to the Venport holdings. Death of Erasmus and Anna Corino. Foldspace Shipping Company takes the name Spacing Guild and monopolizes space commerce, transport, and interplanetary banking, establishing more uniform and orderly interstellar travel and finance, as well as the imposing of the restrictions of the Guild peace. Beginning of the Guild calendar 94. Willem Atreides founds House Atreides in opposition to House Harkonnen, which is beginning to gain more power under Danvis Harkonnen. This solidifies the Atreides-Harkonnen feud for thousands of years. Combined Mercantiles, a former subsidiary of Venhold, is renamed Choam, Combine Honnet Ober Advancer Mercantiles, and begins rising to become a major conglomerate in the empire. The date that the Universal Standard Calendar is centered. Valya Harkonnen begins changing the focus of the Sisterhood of Wallach Nai, transforming it into a new Bene Gesserit sisterhood. The centuries after the formation of the guild. 9 AG Death of Roderick Corino, who is replaced by his son Javico. Gerhard Harkonnen incapacitates his cousin Danvis and becomes the leader of House Harkonnen. 1st century AG. Life of the religious writer Neshu. The Great Convention is signed. According to it, the combined power of the great houses may destroy anyone who uses atomic power against human beings. 3rd century AG. The poisons commonly used in a war of assassins are compiled in the Assassin's Handbook. It will later be expanded to include those deadly devices permitted under the Guild Peace and Great Convention. C. Ayiram Andugal Karital. Invasion of Wallach 9. C. Irandayiram Andugal Christu Mun. The Seleucia incident, an atomic catastrophe caused by House Tantor, destroys the ecology of Seleucia Secundus. Emperor Hasek III moves the imperial throne to Kaitine. Seleucia Secundus is made imperial prison planet. C. Ayyayiram Andugal Karithu. A Bene Gesserit sister on Rosak discovers a plant that enables thought merging. From this date, sisters working at the Freeman Sayadanas will preserve Zensuni history by thought merging and memory transfer instead of oral history. 9153 AG. The governorship of Arrakis becomes an imperial boon granted to a chosen family that will govern the planet for a term not to exceed a century. 9175 AG. Liberation of Bikal in the Senusar defense. 9843 AG. Birth of Fondel, son of Emperor Voutier Corino II. 9997 AG. Birth of Barbara Mutelli. 9999 AG. Birth of Elrud IX, son of Emperor Fondel III. Patayrat Patyeji. House Riches is given governorship of Arrakis. Patayrat Padinette Yeji. Death of Emperor Fondel III. Elrud Corino IX ascends the throne. Birth of Wensicia Mutelli, daughter of Elrud Corino and Barbara Mutelli. During the reign of Elrud IX, Riches is overpowered by Ix in an economic warfare This leads to the political and economic decline of House Riches. 1019 AG. Elrud IX marries Barbara Mutelli. 1020 AG. Birth of Eliot Corino, son of Elrud IX and Barbara Mutelli. 1021 AG. Elrud IX murders Eliot. Barbara Mutelli goes insane. Elrud repeatedly impregnates her, has the embryos removed from Barbara, and places them in storage for later dynastic emergencies. 1024 AG. Birth of Yvette Hagal. 1026 AG. Death of Barbara Mutelli. 1036 AG. Elrud IX marries Yvette Hagal. 1050 AG. Birth of Alexandra Acas. 1070 AG. Birth of Edwina, daughter of Elrud IX and Yvette Hagal. Sumar 170. Akrej, a group of Bene Gesserit sisters working on the Missionaria Protectiva on Arrakis disappear. Reverend Mother Ramallo among them. 1071 AG. Birth of Habla. 1075 AG. Death of Yvette Hagal. Birth of Thufir Hawat. 1079 AG. Elrud IX marries Alexandra Acas. 1082 AG. Birth of Wellington Yue. 103. 1089 AG. Birth of Paulus Atreides. 1090 AG. Marriage of Ilben Richese and Edwina Corino. 1092 AG. Birth of Fafnir Corino, son of Elrud IX and Alexandra Acas. Birth of Juana Marcus. 103. 1095 AG. Birth of Helena Riches, daughter of Ilben and Edwina. 1098 AG. Alexandra Acas disappears. 1000 AG. Elrud IX marries Habla. 111 October. Birth of Vladimir Harkonnen. 1011 AG. House Richezy is ousted from its feudal right of governing Arrakis. Baron Dmitri Harkonnen is made Siridar governor of Arrakis, holding the planet in quasi-fief under a Chom Company contract to mine melange. Dmitri Harkonnen builds orgies on Arrakis. 1012 AG. Wellington Yue graduates at the Suk School. 1014 AG. House Riches regains some of its lost prestige due to a marriage between Paulus Atreides and Helena Richese. 1018 AG. Birth of Hasimir Fenring, the almost successful end product of the Kwisatz Haderach project. After 19 years of childless marriage, Elrud IX has one of the frozen embryos from Barbara Mutelli implanted in Habla. 1019 AG. Habla gives birth to Shaddam, son of Elrud IX and Barbara Mutelli. 1023 AG. Death of Edwina Corino. Sumar 130 AG. Birth of the bastard son of Elrod and his concubine Shando Balut. The child is named Tyros Refa and is adopted by House Taligari. 1032 AG. Birth of Glossu Rabban, first son of Abulord Harkonnen. 1036 AG. Birth of Sitair Pilru and Demur Pilru. 1038 AG. Marriage of Dominic Vernius and Shando Balut. Hasimir and Shaddam. kill Fafnir Corino, the crown prince. 1040 Yeji, the Akazi revolt. Dominic Vernius and Paulus Atreides fight on Elrud the Ninth's side against the rebels. The rebellion is suppressed. Birth of Leto Atreides, son of Paulus Atreides and Helena Richese. Approximate birth of Stilgar, 10,145 AG. Birth of Gurney Halleck, 10,146 AG. Birth of Duncan, Idaho. Death of Dmitri Harkonnen. His son Abelard takes the Siridar governorship of Arrakis. 10,149 AG. Birth of Beth Halleck. 10,153 AG. Vladimir Harkonnen replaces Abelard, his half-brother, as governor of Arrakis. Abelard retires to Lankivale. Elrud the Ninth appoints Pardo Kynes planetologist of Arrakis. After saving Stilgar, he leads the Freemen to start to transform Arrakis into a paradise world. Glossu Rabban kills Duncan, Idaho's parents. Shaddam Corino and Hasimir Fenring poison Elrud the Ninth with a slow-acting poison. Leto Atreides departs from Caladan to study Onyx. Project Amal. 10,154 AG. According to a secret pact with Elrod the Ninth, the Bene Tleilax takes over control of Ix. Tleilaxu Master Hidar Fen Ajidika launches the top-secret project Amal on Ix to develop the method for synthesizing the spice melange. Dominic Vernius and Shando become renegades after the Suboid Revolt. Leto Atreides, Romber Vernius, and Kylia Vernius escape to Caladan. The Freemen begin terraforming Arrakis with Pardo Kynes' guidance. Duncan, Idaho becomes a servant of House Atreides. Dimur Pilru becomes a navigator. Hasimir Fenring kills Grera Carey. Birth of Jessica, daughter of Gaius Helen Moyam and Vladimir Harkonnen, as a subject of the Kwisatz Haderach project. Birth of Liet Kynes, son of Pardo Kynes. 10,155 AG. An Imenbrek is recruited from Dmitri by the Harkonnens. 10,156 AG. Death of Paulus Atreides. Leto Atreides becomes Duke of House Atreides. Bullfighting on Caladan is ended. Death of Elrud the Ninth. Tenu Chobin of Richese invents the No Field, but shares his invention only with Vladimir Harkonnen. A no globe is built on Giedi Prime. Chobin is killed by Mentat. Peter de Vries. Shando Vernius is killed by the Sardaukar. Vladimir Harkonnen's unsuccessful effort to cause warfare between House Atreides and the Bene Tleilax. Shaddam Corino IV becomes emperor. He marries Anirul Sado Tonkin. Hasimir Fenring marries Margot Rashino Zea. Shaddam places him on Arrakis. Dominic Vernius and his followers go into hiding on Arrakis. C. 10,158 AG. Dominic Vernius attacks the Tleilaxu ruling Ix. The Emperor's Sardaukar deflect the attack. After the conquest of Ix, the products of Ixian technology disappear from the Imperium's markets. This leads to the temporary rise of Richese's economy. 10,160 AG. Tleilaxu face dancer Seitel is born. 10,161 AG. The Tleilaxu restart Ixian production. As Ixian products once more become available on the galactic market, Richese's economy declines. 10,163 AG. Appropriations for Sardaukar training begin going down for 30 years. 10,164 AG. Birth of Irulan Corino, daughter of Shaddam IV and Anirul Sado Tonkin. Birth of Chalice Corino, daughter of Shaddam IV and Anirul Sado Tonkin. 10,166 AG. Birth of Wensisha Corino, daughter of Shaddam IV and Anirul Sado Tonkin. House Moritani of Grumman starts the War of Assassins against House Ikaz. Duncan, Idaho starts training on Ginaz to become a swordmaster. Leto Atreides makes Kylea Vernius his concubine. Harkonnen's scouts poison the villagers of Bilar camp on Arrakis. Death of Jostin. 10,168 AG. Birth of Victor Atreides, son of Leto Atreides and Kylea Vernius. Jessica graduates from the Bene Gesserit Mother School on Wallach Nai, under Mohiam, tested by her with a Gom Jabbar and proven as human. 10,170 AG. Gurney Halleck is enslaved by Harkonnens. 10,171 AG. Leto Atreides gains popularity in the Landsraad by trying to solve the Moritani-Akaz conflict. The Bene Gesserit presents Jessica to Leto with the secret aim that she would conceive a girl child from him. This girl should give birth to the Kwisatz Haderach. 10,173 AG. Glossu Rabban kills Gurney Halleck's parents. Disguised as a Buddhist-Islamic monk, Gaius Helen Mohiam gives a potency-strengthening drug to Abulurd Harkonnen and his wife so that they can have another boy child. This boy should father the Kwisatz Haderach. Gurney Halleck escapes from slavery. 10,174 AG. Birth of Abulurd Harkonnen's second son, Feyd-Rautha, in October. Abulurd denounces the name Harkonnen. In revenge, Vladimir Harkonnen kidnaps Feyd-Rautha and adopts both sons of Abulurd. Duncan, Idaho is declared swordmaster. Hasimir Fenring's Sardaukar destroy Dominic Vernius and his base. Gurney Halleck joins House Atreides. Grumman attacks Ginaz. Kylea Vernius tries to kill Leto Atreides because he would not marry her due to political reasons. The unsuccessful attempt causes Victor Atreides' death and Romber Vernius' serious injury. Kylea kills Kiara and commits suicide. Swain Gore goes into exile with the sisters in isolation. Glossu Rabban kills Abulurd Harkonnen. Dr. Wellington Yue arrives to Caladan to cyborg the maimed Rombur Vernius. Pardo Kynes dies. Leet Kynes takes over his work. Birth of Chani Kynes, daughter of Liet Kynes and Farula. Hidar Fen Ajidica, master researcher of Project Amal, plans to build his own empire in secret based on the synthetic spice. He sends hundreds of face dancers beyond the borders of the Imperium in preparation. Great Spice War. 10,175 AG. Dr. Wellington Yue makes Rombur Vernius a cyborg. Death of Truthsayer Lobia. Gaius Helen Mohiam becomes Shaddam's new Truthsayer, testing the newest version of Amal, named Ajidamal. Hidarfen Ajidica finds that it has all the good properties of melange. Possessing the know-how of Ajidamal production, Agidica prepares his escape from Ix to ensure his monopoly based on synthetic spice. Shaddam IV starts the Great Spice War with the secret aim of emptying the spice hoards of the Imperium and destroying the natural spice source, Arrakis. 14 million are killed on the planet of Zanavar in the first attack of the Great Spice War, including Docent Glax Othin and Charens. Shaddam IV executes Tyros Refa. Omnius encounters a human guild highliner navigated by Dimur Pilru outside of the known space of the Imperium, but does not manage to capture it before it returns to known space. Death of Dimur Pilru, death of Sitair Pilru. Sister Christane kills Miral Alakem. Leto Atreides' army liberates Ix from the Tleilaxu rule. Hidar Fen Agidica dies due to the side effects of Agidamal. The failure of Project Amal ends the Emperor's Great Spice War. Hasimir Fenring kills Sister Christane. House Vernius is re-established, with Rombur as ruler of Ix. Wolfram Moritani is born. Bronzo Vernius is born. Birth of Paul Atreides. The Kwisatz Haderach achieved one generation early on Kaitain to Duke Leto Atreides and the Lady Jessica, who disobeys the Sisterhood's command to produce a daughter which will be mother to the Kwisatz Haderach. The baby Paul is kidnapped by Peter de Vries. Anirul Corino is killed by Peter de Vries. Gaius Helen Mohiam kills Peter de Vries and returns Paul to Jessica and Leto. Vladimir Harkonnen orders a Gola of de Vries from the Bene Tleilax to continue to serve him. Pattairatu Nutri Enbatu Undre Eji. Birth of Caliph, son of Jeff. Pattairatu Nutri Enbati Yirendu Eji. Death of Wencisia Mutelli. Pattairatu Nutri Enbatu Mundri Eji. Birth of Orlap, son of Jamis. Pattairatu Nutri Enbatu Aindu Eji. Jessica Atreides meets Yue. Pattairatu Nutri Enbatu Aru Eji. The Harkonnens murder Wana Marcus, wife of Yue. War of Assassins of 10,187 Anno Gallicus. Pattairatu Nutri Enbatu Yeru Eji. Leto Atreides' weapons masters train a small Sardaukar-level force. This makes the Emperor feel threatened. House Moritani visits Ekaz. Wolfram Moritani contracts an illness and disorder that causes him to physically waste away. The only cure for the ailment is a soid poi, which is only found on Ekaz. When Wolfram dies from the disorder, his grieving father Hundro vows revenge on the enemy house by assassinating Aermund and Ileska Ekaz. Duke Prad Vidal of Ilaka launches an attack using blades from the potted plants at the wedding of Leto Atreides and Ilesa Ekaz. They are defended by Rivi Denari, who sacrifices himself in Whitmore blood. Armand loses an arm, and Elisa bleeds to death. Moments after this tragedy, a holographic message of Viscount Hundro Moritani rings throughout the hall, claiming responsibility and thus starting the War of Assassins of 10,187 AG. House Atreides Alice with House Ekaz and House Moritani with House Harkonnen. Leto I and Duncan Idaho assassinate Obstrat Duke Prad Vidal. Lady Helena Atreides, the sisters in isolation, and Swain Gore are killed by the Moritanis. House Moritani is decimated and destroyed in the Battle of Grumman. Pattairatu Nutru Enbatu Ettu Eji. Lady Jessica Atreides and her son Paul Atreides visit Ix so Paul can be dropped off for exchange study in the underground city of Verney. Guildcaster Stokia and 3 other Bene Gesserit sisters put Tessia Vernius into a deep coma for her disobedience to the sisterhood. Romber Vernius reveals to his adopted son, Bronso Vernius of Ix, that he is actually Bronso's uncle, and that long-dead Tyros Refa is actually Bronso's father. Bronso decides to run away from Ix. Paul accompanies him. They stow away a guild highliner and join a jongleur face dancer performing group with their first stop on Balut. Led by Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho, and with assistance from the guild. The duo are found on Chusak and joined by their respective parents. In the Hall of Shards, Paul foils an assassination attempt on the governor of Balut. During the secondary attack, Romber realizes the attempt is only half over and gives his life to protect others. Bronso casts House Atreides out of his life as he is made embittered by what he thinks is Romber's over-concern for Paul. Romber's last words are, "Is Paul safe? 10,189 ஏஜி." Birth of Lichna, daughter of Othame and Duri. 10,190 Yeji Shaddam Corrino IV celebrates 10 millennia of House Corrino rule on Otorio, inviting the nobles of the Houses Major. Jackson Aru starts a rebellion against Shaddam, committing various acts of sabotage. The Bene Gesserit recalls the Lady Jessica from Caladan to Wallach the Nine to extract Lithia's secrets. Lithia dies, and Jessica is sent to be the concubine of Viscount Toole on Elegy. With the help of the Viscount, Jessica is able to go to Caladan to warn Paul to be on his guard. Zora is sent to Caladan to become the concubine of the Duke Leto. Leto travels to Kaitine, and before a duel with Lord Atik, the Lord is poisoned. Paul becomes acting duke. He also attempts to get married, but soon after decides to go HM. Leto decides he will take another path to get Shaddam's favor by infiltrating Jackson Aru's rebellion and exposing it from within. He sends Gurney Halleck to Kaitan with a message for Shaddam and joins Aru, who continues to commit acts of sabotage against Shaddam. However, Gurney is intercepted by the Harkonnens. The Baron, Vladimir Harkonnen, is stockpiling huge amounts of spice on Arrakis in a secret facility. He has it smuggled to various people and is making huge profits. He challenges his nephews, Glossu Rabban and Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, to hurt House Atreides in some way to prove their worthiness to become the next Baron. Rabban obtains a blight that cripples the moonfish industry, one of the main industry of Caladan, making the Count Hasimir Fenring lose all of his money. Feyd chooses to attack through the use of a rogue swordmaster who heads to Caladan and kills Zora, mistaking her for Jessica. The Baron's spice facility has to be scuttled when it is exposed. Reinvar the Magnificent dies after he is severely injured during an escape from an Arai Tleilaxu assassination attempt. He is replaced by a face dancer. Desert War. 10,191 Yeji. January to March. The fief of Arrakis, the planet known as DUNE, is taken from the Harkonnens and given to House Atreides. The Atreides leave Caladan, which comes under the Siridar Absentia on Count Hasimir Fenring, whilst the Atreides rule Arrakis. March. House Harkonnen attack House Atreides in the Siege of Arrakeen with help of the Emperors Sardaukar. Death of Kinnett and Xigo. Peter de Vries kills Dr. Wellington Yue. Duke Leto Atreides kills Peter de Vries, and Eakin Nefud Robin is handed the fief of Arrakis. This marks the second time the Harkonnens have controlled Arrakis, and therefore the spice production of the known universe. He kills 9,000 freemen. April. Duncan Idaho is killed by Sardaukar. Paul and Jessica escape and join the freemen. May to October. Jamis is killed by Paul, and Paul inherits Hera, Jamis' wife. Liet Kynes is killed by a spice blow. Paul becomes known as Muad'Dib and becomes somewhat of a religious leader among the freemen. Jessica Atreides converts the water of life and becomes the next Reverend Mother of the Fremen. Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen turns 17 years old. November. Alia Atreides is born. Birth of Leto Atreides, the second the elder, to Paul Atreides and Chani Kynes, who becomes his concubine and lover. Patayrate Nutre Tornutre Rende Yeji. Rabban kills another 6,000 freemen. Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen has a child with Lady Margot Fenring, wife of Count Hasimir Fenring. Patayrate Nutre Tornutre Mundru Yeji. November. Paul regains control of Arrakis and the spice mining monopoly, which he stops. Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen attempts at killing the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. December. The Spacing Guild lowers its price so that every great house's army heads to Arrakis. Shaddam IV arrives with 5 legions of Sardaukar, the Spacing Guild, and the great houses in the Arrakis airspace to stop Muad'Dib. Thufir Hawat kills himself. The Desert War ends with the Battle of Arrakeen. Leto Atreides II, the Elder, is murdered in a raid on a sietch by the Sardaukar. Glossu Rabban Harkonnen is slain by the Fremen. Alia kills the Baron by means of the Gom Jabbar, causing the title of Baron to pass to Feyd. Paul Atreides, the man behind the mysterious Muad'Dib, kills Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen in Canly. Paul declares that he will marry the Princess Irulan and become Padishah, Emperor of the known universe. The Spacing Guild essentially yield to Paul's control, wishing to preserve the spice content of Arrakis. The Bene Tleilax create a Duncan Idaho Gola named Hate to present to Paul. Stilgar becomes governor of Arrakis and minister of state. Shaddam Corrino IV abdicates and is exiled to Salusa Secundus with his daughters, other than Irulan and Hasimir Fenring. Paul officially becomes emperor and Muad'Dib's jihad begins. 130. Stilgar becomes governor of Arrakis and minister of state. Princess Irulan publishes The Life of Muad'Dib, Volume 1, on the events of the Desert War. It is the first of many books she will write on Paul, and occasionally other things, over the years. Atreides Empire, 10,193 to 13,725 AG. Muad'Dib's Jihad, Patayrate Nutre Tornutre Nange Yeji. Eno joins Muad'Dib's Fedaykin. Paul and Jessica travel back to Caladan, where Jessica is installed as Duchess. Fremen troops capture Kaitine in the Sack of Kaitine. Aliyah proclaims that those who are not Muad'Dib's allies are his enemies. Former Emperor Shaddam IV allies with his old friend Hasimir Fenring. 1096 Yeji. Gurney Halleck captures Galicia for this jihad. Lord Collis is executed by Eno against Gurney's orders, and Gurney executes Eno. 1098 Yeji. The Great Surrender Ceremony is ordered by Emperor Paul Atreides Muad'Dib as a way of Landsraad nobles to show obeisance. The Tleilaxu Kwisatz Haderach candidate, known as Thalo, attempts to kill through nerve gas the inhabitants of the entire city of Thaliday on Tleilax. His is killed by Marie Fenring. At the ceremony, Swordmaster Whitmore Blood, in an attempt to gain historical fame, plans a well-rehearsed assassination attempt on the Emperor. In the ensuing hunter-seeker melee, many nobles are killed or trampled, including Rugi Corino. Marie Fenring is sent to Arrakis by Hasimir Fenring and his wife, Margot Fenring, to be raised in the imperial court in Arrakeen. The 2-year rebellion of Landsraad nobles, led by Memnon Thorvald, is put to an end as Paul sees their strike against Caladan. In a prescient vision, Paul orders the somewhat guilty guild navigator Beric to strand the rebels in their starships in distant space with no supplies. Paul orders House Atreides starships to destroy and sterilize all life on Epir, homeworld of Memnon Thorvald. Second attempt on the Emperor's life. At a celebratory banquet in honor of the Fenrings, little Marie Fenring springs into action and attempts to kill Paul with a needle-wire whip. She is killed by Aliyah Atreides. A few minutes later, Hasimir stabs Paul deep through chest and back with the Emperor's blade, but Paul self-heals himself. The Fenrings are allowed to live and are permanently banished to Salusa Secundus. Princess Irulan publishes The Life of Muad'Dib, Volume 2, which covers the story of the War of Assassins of 10,187. 10,200 ஆண்டுகள். Paul sterilizes the populations of 11 more planets. Bronso of Ix begins writing against Emperor Paul Muad'Dib secretly in his employment to combat the myth forming around him. Lady and Duchess Jessica Atreides and Chani visits Salusa Secundus to inspect the terraforming the planet. Bene Gesserit Gilt Castor Stokia visits Margot Fenring, who tries to put Margot into a comatose state, but is killed by Hasimir. The Kizarati attempts to rename Caladan, which declares itself independent of Paul's empire under Gaius Helen Mohiam. Earl Gurney negotiates with the secessionist leaders, who are then poisoned by Jessica. Jessica meets the leadership of the Bene Gesserit on Wallach 9, who try to persuade her to kill her son, the Emperor. 10,202 Yeji. Shaddam Corino, the fourth dice. 131. Sabiha is born. 10,204 Yeji. Bronzo Vernius is thrown into a death cell and interrogated by ruthless Kizara inquisitors, but he escapes and continues his seditious crusade. Last conspiracy against Muad'Dib. 10,205 AG Paul Atreides. At this point, the 82nd Padishah Emperor sits on the golden lion throne while for the past 12 standard years his jihad of Fremen has crossed the known universe and brought a dozen rebellious planets under Paul's rule. Irulan, Edric, Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, and Seidel Conspire to destroy the House of Atreides. Irulan wants to bear the royal heir. Edric wants to break Atreides' monopoly on spice, and Gaius Helen Mohiam wants the Atreides bloodline back under Bene Gesserit control. Seidel reveals that the Tleilaxu have created a Gola called Height that is a copy of Duncan, Idaho. Seidel kills Farak and his son. Paul signs the Tupile Treaty, allowing the Guild to hide the existence of Tupile. The Ixian Confederacy offers submission if imperial taxes are limited. The Battle of Sembu results in a victory for the forces of the Jihad. Muad'Dib's jihad ends. 10,206 AG Battle of Zabulon. The planet joins the Atreides Empire. Gaius Helen Mohiam is imprisoned at Paul's command. When Edric comes to Arrakis to create an understanding between Paul and the Spacing Guild, the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam orders Irulan to kill Chani to prevent an Atreides heir at all costs. Saitale kills Lichna and takes her form. 10,207 AG Othame and Duri give Bijaz to Paul, then are killed by a stone burner which blinds Paul, although he still manages to see through prescience. Chani gives birth to Leto Atreides II and Ghanima Atreides, then dies. Saitali is killed by Paul. Hate remembers his existence as Duncan. Duncan kills Bijaz on Paul's orders. Paul goes into the deep desert. Alia Atreides assumes regency of the throne for the twins. Stilgar executes Edric, Gaius, Helen Mohiam, and Korba. Lady Jessica Atreides and Gurney Halleck return to Arrakis, where Jessica reveals to Irulan and Gurney the truth about Bronso of Ix. Bronso Vernius of Ix is captured and executed. God Emperor's reign. 10,217 AG. Alia Atreides is possessed by the dead Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. Jessica and Gurney Halleck return to Arrakis. Leto and Ghanima realize that the terraforming of Arrakis will kill all the sandworms, thus destroying the source of the spice. Paul Atreides, as the preacher, begins railing against the religious government's injustices and the changes among the freemen. He journeys to Salusa Secundus to meet Wensicia Corino's son Faradin, and in return pledges Duncan, Idaho, as an agent of House Corino. Alia attempts to assassinate Jessica, who escapes into the desert with Duncan's help, precipitating a rebellion among the freemen. Leto seeks out the preacher. Everyone else thinks he is dead. He finds him and discovers he is Paul, killing his guide Hassan Tariq. Duncan and Jessica flee to Salusa Secundus, where Jessica begins to mentor Faradin, who seizes power from his mother and allies with the Bene Gesserit. Jessica orders Gurney Halleck to infiltrate a group of Fremen outlaws who capture Leto. On Gurney's suggestion, they force him to undergo the spice trance. Leto escapes and sacrifices his humanity in pursuit of the Golden Path by physically fusing with a school of Sandshroud. He travels across the desert and confronts his father. Stilgar kills the Gola Duncan, Idaho, after he kills Javid and provokes Stilgar. Stilgar kills Buer Argives. Paul and Leto return to the capital to confront Aaliyah. Upon arriving, Paul is murdered. Aaliyah manages to commit suicide by throwing herself off a high balcony. Leto ascends the imperial throne as Leto II and sets humanity on the golden path, his vision of the future. He takes the Bene Gesserit breeding program into his own hands by interbreeding the genes of Faradin Carino and Ghanima Atreides. His control over the spice forces, peace, and calmness on humanity. Leto orders a new Duncan Idaho Gola from the Tleilaxu to serve him as swordmaster. He will continue to purchase new Duncans to serve him over the next 3,500 years. Faradin gives Leto the Sardaukar 10,225 AG Hasmir Fenring dies. 10,256 AG Jessica Atreides dies. Pattayirate Nanur Yeji. As a result of terraformation, the sand trout and sandworms become extinct on Arrakis. C. Pattayirate Ainuru Andugal Karital. Spreading their machine-based civilization, the Ixians develop an economic technological federation with a center named Ixian Corps. The God Emperor assembles his all-female army of fish speakers. C. 11,000 AG. Through gradual growth, Leto II's empire becomes multi-galactic. 11,228 AG. The Sandblaster Wind is last seen on Arrakis. 11,230 AG. The end of smuggling. 11,700 AG. The Bene Gesserit investigators begin observing the homogenization of family life. 12,335 AG. Leto executes the 9 historians. 12,700 AG. Leto II takes his penultimate bride, the last for more than 1,000 years. Padinar Ayiramandagar. With Leto II's silent approval, the Ixians no longer follow the orders of the Butlerian Jihad. They produce computers again, in secret. Padinan Kairatu Arunutru Aimbadieji, the Ixians reinvent the no field, unaware of the similar invention of the Richesian Chobin. Leto II's no chamber is built at Dar es Balat on Arrakis. Leto II extinguishes the Bene Gesserit Mentat school on Wallach 9. C. 14,670 AG. A new Duncan Idaho Gola begins his service to Leto. 14,672 AD. Quintinuis Violet Chenoe joins the Bene Gesserit. 18,725 AG. Death of Radi, Aline, Ulat, Setuse, Inineg, Onemau, Hutie, Memar, and Oala, conspirators against Leto II. The latest Duncan Idaho Gola attempts on Leto's life, assisted by the Ixian ambassador Io Kobat, but is killed. Io Kobat is sent back to Ix after the attempt replaced by Hui Nori as ambassador. A new Duncan is given to Leto, whose first assignment as Leto's swordsmaster as a test is to kill a rebellious man of House Carino who attempts to bribe Majordomo Moneo Atreides. Duncan assigns the task to a fish speaker. Bene Gesserit sister Quintinius Violet Chenoe dies in the 53rd year of her sisterhood, the cause being ascribed to melange incompatibility during her attempt to achieve the status of Reverend Mother. Reverend Mothers Tertius, Eileen, Antioch, and Marcus Clare Luiseal visit Arrakis. Siona ibn Fuad al-Sayefa Atreides and the new Duncan Idaho Gola kill Leto II and gain stewardship of Arrakis. The sand trout, swarming free from Leto's skin, start storing water. They will eventually re-desertify Arrakis. Part of Leto's empire is inherited by his army, the Fish Speakers. Famine, times, and scattering, 13,725 to 15,200 AG. 13,725-14,025 AG. The sandworms, now with animal awareness and a new cunning, reappear on Arrakis. 13,750 AG. The Ixians invent the first generation of navigation machines, breaking the Spacing Guild's monopoly over spaceflight. 14,800 ஆண்டுகள். The Bene Gesserit moves its center to Chapter House. 14,000 AG. Waves of violence strike the Imperium during the famine times. Driven by social unrest, the scattering begins. Traveling with no ships, a part of humanity spreads to enormous spaces in the universe. Throughout the former empire of Leto II, the Old Empire, planetary governments exist in a loose economic federation held together partly by Choam, partly by the Bene Gesserit. Some areas are ruled by the Fish Speaker Council. 14,500 AG. Waves of people move on again and again to still farther, unknown places from the scattering using no ships. The Bene Tleilax finally invents the way of producing the spice melange artificially. As a result of the wealth of spice navigation machines are used less frequently. 14,929 AG. Miles Teg is born. 15,935 AG. Sabine Teg is born. 15,942 AG. Miles Teg is sent to advanced schooling at the Bene Gesserit stronghold on Lampetus, where his mother's assessment of his hymn is confirmed. c. 15,000 AG. The stolen journals are found. 15,002 AG. Cerbal revolt. Miles Teg's enemies bow to him. 152.100 anos depois de Cristo. The lost ones begin to return from the scattering. Among them are those who call themselves the Honored Matres. Sister Dortuja is sent to Buzel for a love affair. 15,210 AG. The group of Honored Matres escaping back to the old empire establish base on Gamu. 15,212 AG. The Honored Matres take over control of an increasing number of planets. In the meantime, the loose economic federation kept together by Choam slowly falls apart. 15,213 AG. 12th Duncan Idaho Gola, created for the Bene Gesserit. The Honored Matres begin to return from the scattering, wreaking havoc and destroying anyone in their way, fleeing the outside enemy. 15,218 AG. Sheena Brew is born. 15,225 AG. Having waited for millennia, the Bene Tleilax sets out to conquer humanity and convert it to the great belief of the Tleilaxu. 15,228 AG. Birth of Yorgi, son of Roitiro, on Chapter House. The War of the Bene Gesserit and Honored Matres. 15,229 to 15,240 after Guild. 15,230 229 AG. The Bene Gesserit Keep-on-Gamu, formerly Giedi Prime, is attacked by the Honored Matres, Reverend Mother Lucilla, as well as Miles Tegg and the Duncan Idaho Gola manage to escape to an ancient Harkonnen no-globe. The Duncan Idaho Gola regains its memories in the no-globe. Patarin kills himself. The Bene Gesserit forces the Honored Matres to destroy all Rakian life. The Battle of Rakis and the planet's destruction. The sandworms of Rakis become extinct, and thus humanity is set free of Leto II's scattered conscience, which kept its future bound. Miles Tegg dies. Murbella of the Honored Matres joins the Bene Gesserit. The Sisterhood, led by Mother Superior Darwi Odrade, rescue a sandworm from Rakis and takes it to Chapter House Planet. The Honored Matres destroy all the planets of the Bene Tleilax. The Bene Gesserit saves and hides the last remaining Tleilaxu master, Seitel. 15,230 AG. Birth of Murbella's and Duncan Idaho's twin daughters, Rinya and Janess. Birth of Miles Tegg's Gola. The sand trout, originating from the rescued sandworm, begin desertification of Chapter House Planet. The Bene Gesserit launches a new scattering, sending out sisters and sand trout to the universe. The Honored Matres conquer Junction and begin destroying the planets of the Bene Gesserit. Ikaz is conquered by the Honored Matres. 15,240 acres. Another battle of Lampadas results in the destruction of the planet. Death of Aleph Burzmali. Lucilla saves memories of Lampadas before dying. Birth of Duncan Idaho's and Murbella's fourth daughter, Gianne. Sandworms appear on Chapter House Planet. Death of Darwi Odrei. Longyo kills Dama and becomes Great Honored Matre. The Bene Gesserit launch the Battle of Gamu and Battle of Junction. Murbella becomes both the new Mother Superior and the Great Honored Matre after killing Logno at the end of the battle. She begins the conversion of the Honored Matres to Bene Gesserit sisters. From the merging of the two groups rise the new sisterhood. Duncan Idaho, Shiana Brug, Seidel, Miles Tegg, a few Bene Gesserit, and a few Jews escape from Chapter House with a no-ship. Kralizek, 15,240 to 15,264 AG. 15,241 AG. The fleeing no-ship is named Ithaca. 15,243 AG. Rinya dies in spice agony. 15,244 AG. Vladimir Harkonnen's Gola is born on Tleilax. 15,246 AG. Paul Atreides' Gola is born on board the Ithaca. 15,247 AG. The Gola of Lady Jessica and Thufir Hawat is born on board the Ithaca. 15,248 AG. Chani's Gola is born on board the Ithaca. 15,249 AG. The Gola of Wellington, Yue, and Seitel is born on board the Ithaca. 15,250 acres. Lietkine's Gola is born on board the Ithaca. 15,251 AG. Stilgar's Gola is born on board the Ithaca. The new sisterhood conquers Buzzle, eliminating a group of rebellious Honored Matres. 15,252 AG, the Gola of Leto II is born on board the Ithaca. 15,253 AG, birth of Paul Atreides Gola Paolo on Tleilax. 15,254 AG, omnious face dancers enable the Ixians to improve the primitive navigation machines. The Ixians think the invention is their own making. The new sisterhood conquers Gamu, eliminating another group of rebellious honored matres. 15,256 AG, birth of Tilwythwaf's Golas on Tleilax. 15,259 AG, the honored matres of Tleilax destroy Rachis. Murbella discovers the origins of the honored matres. The new sisterhood conquers Tleilax, eliminating the last group of rebellious honored matres in the old empire. Omnius unsuccessfully tries to entrap the Ithaca to get the Kwisatz Haderach aborted. 15,261 AG, the Gola of Elia Atreides is born on board the Ithaca. 15,262 AG, Seitle dies. At his deathbed, his Gola regains his memories. 15,264 AG, the No ship, the Ithaca, was captured by the thinking machine ruler Omnius and forced down to the surface of the planet. The Gola of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen killed the Gola of Elia Atreides as she exited the Ithaca. A duel to the death took place between the Golas of Paul Atreides, one raised on the Ithaca by the Gola of Duncan, Idaho, and Shiana Brugh, and one raised by Harkonnen on Dan. The duel was to see who was the ultimate Kwisatz Haderach, whom Erasmus, Ominos's assistant, believed was on the Ithaca. The duel occurred in the cathedral. Paolo won the duel, overdosed on the superpotent melange ultra spes, and went into a prescient coma. The Oracle of Time appeared in the cathedral with a guild highliner navigator of over 1,000 ships. She then transported Omnius to another dimensional universe, with herself leaving for there as a guardian. Erasmus activated the kill switch on all enhanced face dancers in the universe, killing all of them instantly, including Crone, their leader. Duncan, Idaho was revealed to be the ultimate and final Kwisatz Haderach, who would bring a union and peace between man and machine. Due to his serial Gola lives, the universe had chosen him to be its leader due to his compassion for humanity and care for thinking machines. Erasmus then gave Idaho all of the machine guidance access codes, which enabled Idaho to be the new Evermind. Erasmus then willingly died. Idaho had his former lover and mother of his children, Murbella, brought to Synchrony to witness the new peace between humans and robots. Synchrony became the headquarters of the new Bene Gesserit sisterhood and of the new Bene Tleilaxu race. The thinking machine Armada reached Chapter House and Junction for battle after having ravaged both planets with the Omnius Scourge months earlier. Murbella, mother commander of the new sisterhood, and her daughter Bashar Janice Idaho tried to engage the machines in starship battle, but realized that humankind's ships had been sabotaged by face dancers. The Oracle of Time stepped in with her highliner fleet and destroyed the first wave of attacking machine ships. The navigators returned hours later and escorted Murbella to Synchrony to meet with the now super being Duncan, Idaho. Duncan, Idaho created a new order of both man and machine. The dying Tleilaxu master Tilweath Waff saw the decades-dormant sandworms break through the sands of the surface of the planet, showing they were alive. Mother Superior Shiana Brug established the Second Orthodox Sisterhood on Synchrony and created a Gola of Serena Butler. Paul and Chani Kynes retired to Rachis. Seidele reformed the Bene Tleilax. 15,275 AG on Synchrony, Mother Superior Shiana begins training the Gola of Serena Butler in the Orthodox Bene Gesserit ways. 20,217 AG peroration of Gauss Undaud on the 10th anniversary of Ledoku's ascension to the throne. Behind the scenes, discrepancies exist in the original DUNE novel by Frank Herbert as to the birth dates of Paul Atreides, Shaddam Carino IV, and Hasimir Fenring. The first quote in the novel indicates that Paul was born in 10,191, though he is stated as being 15 when House Atreides moves to Arrakis shortly before Aaliyah's birth. The prequel novels G. Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson correct this by moving Shaddam's birth year back 15 years, and thus the birth year of Hasimir Fenring. The appendices in the DUNE novel state that Paul became emperor officially 3 years after the defeat of House Carino in the Battle of Arrakeen. In the Heroes of DUNE novel, Paul of Dune, Paul becomes emperor immediately after Arrakeen, and in 10,196, 3 years later, he is simply addressing the Lance Rod for the first time. Thus, the dates of events in original and expanded DUNE differ by a few years from DUNE Messiah.